Hello everybody, my name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. It's been a little bit, it's been like 2 months since I posted. Technically not really, because I did post a couple things, live streams and stuff, but it's been a while since I've actually sat down or like filmed anything new. So I wanted to come in and give you some updates and talk about my July and August and just what's been going on. So normally I go in the order of the books I read, the things I wrote, and personal life tidbits. I am going to switch that around and just briefly touch upon the personal life because that's kind of what's impacted my channel a little bit more recently. And I'm not going to go into a ton of details for privacy, but just to kind of give you a little glimpse. So for my personal life, in July, things really started to kind of get a little crazy, not just for my own health, but also for my partner's health. And it has just like continued and escalated, and it's annoying and frustrating and scary and all those things. So for me personally, I was having kind of like a chronic uncomfortability. Like it wasn't fully pain, but there was like an uncomfortable feeling that I was experiencing radiating down my back and into my leg, sciatic problems for the most part. But then in July, it just started to get like really bad, and then all of a sudden, like I was in full-blown pain, like level 10 for multiple days. I lost sleep, I was losing my mind, I couldn't eat, and it was just a lot. So I've been seeing many doctors, people who have been pushing all different types of treatments, and I finally started physical therapy. By the time you're seeing this, I would have started like the first week of September, so which is a good thing, but it definitely took a bit to get going and finding something that wasn't super dire. But yeah, I had to go to like an MRI, and I had to go get like other things, and it was just very exhausting doing all of that. And it's not over, but I'm very hopeful about the physical therapy now, and I am thinking I will be able to recover. If not where I was, you know, before, I think I'll be good and I'll accept that. As far as my partner's health, that's his, you know, business, but it's been very draining and very scary, and that's been even worse than mine. It's just been doctors for both of us for a while, so just, you know, put some well wishes out for us, lots of healing vibes, whatever you believe in, if you want to say a prayer, but it would be helpful just because it's been a lot, and I am hoping I'm finally getting answers. I hope that he can get answers next. So that's where we've been at personally. As far as anything else personal life, like that has pretty much been like the focal point, and it's really taken up quite a lot of time. So I haven't done as much as I thought I was going to personally. I got to do a couple things here and there, like I had a bridal shower, I went to a wine fest, and times that I was gonna hopefully, you know, video, but it didn't happen, and I don't have footage, and it is what it is. It's just, it was there for me and whoever I was with, and that's it. So unfortunately I don't have too much to report personally, but, well, actually I do. I have one other major thing to report, which also kind of impacts the whole writing thing. So yeah, I guess I'll say that too. So as everybody knows, if you've been around my channel, in July, did I say this? No, can't remember. No, I guess I didn't. Okay. I got licensed in July. Man, that's how long I've been out for it. So yeah, in July, maybe I said it in a vlog. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've videoed. I don't remember what is on my channel anymore. But I've been pursuing my license as a professional counselor for many a year, but more in depth this past couple months, and I've hit like a lot of snags, and I didn't know when it was going to happen. And finally in July, the state board approved me and I got licensed, so I'm now a licensed professional counselor. And at the end of July, beginning of August, somebody reached out to me to say that they wanted me to apply for a job. I wasn't really gonna apply immediately for anything. If I was maybe thinking about doing like an after like my current job, like maybe doing a couple hours a week and just getting a little bit more practice in therapy in the outpatient setting. But when they reached out to me, I was like, all right, like what's the worst that's gonna happen? And I ended up interviewing, and pretty immediately they offered me a job. And overall, it was just a really good change, and it kind of gets me closer to doing maybe private practice in the future. It was a good pay raise, a very good pay raise. It was like good benefits, and they also offered basically like a normal outpatient setting, which again, I want to do private practice one day. So having like the schedule of being in an office just one-to-one with clients and kind of doing your own thing, like that's the vibe that I eventually wanted. Like I didn't want to stay in the school system forever. So I'm excited for this change, and I will be starting on September 11th. So it's coming up very fast, and I can't believe it. And I've been going through a lot of emotions. I am very, very sad to leave the kids that I work with. They've grown on my heart in the last couple years, and they all have different reactions to things. So some's taking it harder, others are very understanding and empathetic, and it's just, at the end of the day, it's still an ending. So it's sad, and it's okay, but yeah, that was a big life change. So in the midst of all the medical stuff, getting a new job has also been terrifying, because I'm like, with all the options that have been thrown at me, and like quite a few doctors had pushed surgery for me, and I'm like, I can't have surgery because I need a new job. So yeah, that's been a lot, but also the job itself has been very demanding for the pre-hire, because it's the type of facility I'll be working in. There's so many things I have to go through that I've never had to do for other jobs before, and so they're very new for me, and it's been very daunting. And there's been so many steps. I've had to go places, I've had to get tests done. Oh my god, I had to get new vaccines. It's just been a lot, and I haven't been able to write as much because I've been, you know, out and about running around and doing, you know, all these hoops that I've had to jump through. So that's gonna be over soon because I'm gonna start the job. But those are the two things that have been pretty much taking up a lot of my time. And as we know, YouTube is gonna fall off the wagon because it is one of my lower priorities. So nothing against you guys, but my life has been kind of crazy. So now we're here, and I don't want to keep this video too long, so we're about to speed race through all the books I read in the last 2 months, because there's been quite a lot. I've actually finished 10 books in the last 2 months. Now maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but they've been chunky. There have been chunky books, and I have finished them, and that is an accomplishment in my opinion. Maybe not all of them are chunky, but a good portion of them. So the first one is an ARC that I received, and it was The Many Lives of Mama Love by Laura Love Hardin. Laura Love is an agent in the community, so she represents a lot of nonfiction books, but it goes through her life on how she got there, and a lot of things that she had been ashamed of and didn't want to share with people because of how intense it was. And it follows her life of having a drug addiction and then going into incarceration because of it, losing her kids and all of that. So it was very hard hitting, but it also brought up the fact that the criminal justice system is so broken because there's so many people who are mistreated and abused, women and men alike. And how many people get away with things and bribe guards. Like, you know, the drugs are so ingrained in the prisons and the jail cells just as much as they are on the streets. So it was just a very rewarding read, even if it's a little hard to read at times. But I really, really appreciated that I got this arc and that I was able to read and review it. I sped through it. It was very well written, and I highly recommend it. Next, I finished The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. Just let's take a quick, because how pretty is this? I am obsessed. I loved this. I actually think I liked the sequel of this more than I liked the first book. Initially, it was kind of slow because the first book is very much vibes. I hear that a lot with that book, and I agree. Like, the first book is kind of like this dark academia vibey book where nothing really happens until the end. But that's not the case for the sequel. Like, the sequel is really where, like, this does not have middle book syndrome at all. Like, this was so good. I was very invested. Like, once I got reoriented to the characters and where they've been and what they're up to, it was just so interesting. There's new components that are added. There's, like, new aspects. The stakes are higher, and you really get to get into the characters so well, and you get more from each of them. So I really loved this. I was so happy. I can't wait for the ending. But this might be one of my faves of the year. I was obsessed, and I need people to talk about it with me because all of my friends have not read it yet, and I need somebody to read it. Next, I got another arc, which was Sunshine Nails by Mai Ingyuan. And this one is a contemporary, like an adult contemporary, where this family, it lives in Canada, and the oldest daughter decides that she doesn't really want to be like the daughter of immigrants who own a nail salon, like the stereotypical Asians. And she moves to Los Angeles, but her life kind of crashes and burns there, and she moves back home. And when she moves back home, she starts to get involved in this kind of revenge plot for her parents' salon against this like massive like chain salon that is moving next door and likely going to run them out of business. And I think it's an okay. I believe this was a debut. It was not my fave. I was a little bit disappointed. I thought it was gonna be more of a comedy, to be honest. Like, based on the synopsis of the book, I thought it was gonna be humorous and a fun time. And honestly, I felt like sometimes secondhand embarrassment reading it, and then at the end, like, the revenge plot was very malicious, and I wasn't prepared for that. Like, there wasn't like a moral of the story or like a funny hijinks to get there. It was just mean and malicious, and that wasn't nice. And I didn't really enjoy myself by the end of it because there was none of that humor that I thought I was getting. So I don't think it's bad, but I think the description is a little misleading, and if anyone's gonna read it, just know that this is a little bit darker than I was expecting. Then I read Midnight Thief by Livia Blackburn. This was Livia Blackburn's debut fantasy novel. I believe it's a duology, and it's kind of your normal street rat grows up and kind of gets mixed in with assassins plotline with some animal magic, like animal shapeshifter stuff going on. And I was kind of excited for this. This was my July book club's pick. They wanted to read it as, you know, we were doing like a let's start a riot for, instead of like patriotism, we went for the anarchy side of things for July. This was the one that won, and nobody read it because a lot of people couldn't get through it. I powered through because, god damn it, I bought it on Audible and I couldn't return it. So I needed to finish it. But I wish I got it somewhere else. Like, the library did not have it. It's an older title at this point. It might be out of print. I'm not sure. It was just fine. I really wasn't invested in the story. I had a hard time paying attention. Like, I didn't want to pick it up. There was other books I wanted to read, and I finished it, but it was just fine. You know, I already forget a lot of the plot, and I have no interest in reading the sequel. Then I read The Adventures of Mina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Oh, what a good book. What a good book. This was our August pick for book club, and I wish my book club actually read it. There was only 2 of us who finished this one, and it was so good. I love Chakraborty's voice in this. Basically, this follows a middle-aged woman who is a retired pirate, and she gets kind of swept up in one last adventure where this grandmother of one of her crewmates shows up and says, like, he had a daughter and you kind of owe us this debt, and essentially blackmails her into going back into service. And there's kind of like a little bit of fantastical elements. There's demons. It has very like rich Islam in it, and I love that because I don't really see that very often, and it's a very like nice portrayal of it, in my opinion. I just really like to see that representation, you know, because I feel like religion is so hot and sometimes one side gets loud and only chastises the other side, so it's good to see that there are positives, right? And I just really love the adventure, and I did not know this was going to be like a trilogy, because of course it is, and now I have to wait for the sequel, and I'm bummed. But I do think this stands alone very nicely. There is a cliffhanger, but it's definitely not something that I feel like people will be mad about. It's a very nicely done cliffhanger. And this is another one I got in Fairy Loot, and another book that is just so pretty. Like, always the pretty books. Then I got another arc called The Look Back Window by Kyle Dylan Hertz. This one was a really tough read, and I don't think I would be able to properly give it a star rating. Like, if I did, I probably did on Goodreads to give it one, but it's really hard, and I don't think I would recommend this to most people. It was a very tough read. Basically, like, this is following a gay man who has been very brutally sexually abused and victimized, sex trafficked, like throughout his entire teenage years, and he gets an opportunity to kind of get back at his abusers by this look back window, which means that you get a year. If the statute of limitations has already expired, you get a year to decide if you want to try to pursue legal action. And he's debating this. So like him with this look back window, he has this opportunity and he's like rethinking all of this abuse. So the story itself is like a super important one, but the other thing is too, I'm going to be careful because it's not a real story, but it very much has real elements from the author's actual experiences of being victimized and sex trafficked. So I want to be like careful and not seem cruel when I'm reviewing this, but the language in the book is very crass. It's very blunt. And it's also that way, not just for like, you know, talking about like everyday conversations, but it's also that way for every single depiction of sex and sexual abuse and rape. There are both, like there is consensual sex in the book, and there's also non-consensual acts, very many of them in the book, and they're very, very graphic. So I do not know how many people could actually read it. It actually, and I don't get uncomfortable a lot, but it made me very uncomfortable many times. And I get it because there's a point to be made, but I do think it was a little bit overdone for my taste because many of them were very repetitive. Like we would have like a scene where the character was being abused, so there was a flashback, and then to cope with that flashback, we would go have consensual sex as an adult now, and that would be very graphic. So it was I felt like it's hard to differentiate because the language is the same for both, if that makes sense. And again, it's just very, very blunt and direct. So there is something to be said about that to get people to have that emotion, but I also just think it maybe could have done with a little bit less of the descriptions because it was a lot and it made me pause many times. Like I did have a hard time. Like initially I thought I was going to really like be able to recommend this a lot, but then the language just kind of set it off for me. So it was deep, but it was a lot for me. I keep saying that, but anyway, I needed a palate cleanser after that book, and I picked up The Glass Witch by Lindsay Puckett. I've owned this because I pre-ordered it, but I never got to read it because my life, I just keep forgetting things. But this was like the perfect way to like get into like the spooky season, even though I was a little bit early in August, but you know, I was really excited about it. It's just so little, and it was just so nice. Like, Lindsay, you're such a good writer. I'm so proud of you. I hope you're watching this. But no, seriously, Lindsay is amazing. Oh my God, her banter and her wittiness in this book is so fun and charming. I love the characters. I love the magic system, like Kindred. Oh, like I just wish I created that. Like, I'm a little jealous because this was so nice. And I'm so amazed at the whole middle grade thing. I just don't think I can write middle grade. Maybe one day, but not right now. And oh, I can't wait for the odds. I have an arc and I'm going to be reading that soon, and that comes out like next week, maybe 2 weeks. I can't remember off the top of my head, but guys, go pre-order Lindsay's next book and go buy this one because it is so worth it. All right, we got 3 more and I'm trying my best. So, Frugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. Very fun, kind of funny at times, kind of not funny at other times. This reminded me very much of a book that I read last year with my book club, which was Off to Be a Wizard. It has a very similar plot where like 2 people kind of find their way into a medieval England setting, and there's like hijinks going on. The part that I really liked was the excerpts from the Frugal Wizard's Guide. So the Frugal Wizard's Guide is like an actual textbook, and it's an experience. So like people basically, you know, corporate America, buying things and selling it for other people. So they capitalize on all these different dimensions and then sell it to people to go be the hero of their own dimension in medieval England. So basically like they're dimensions that never really continued after medieval England. Like they're still there in our timeline, like we're advanced and they're not, kind of deal. But I liked the excerpts from the book. I thought those were the funniest, and I also thought they were very on the nose for like corporate America, so I appreciated that. The story itself was fine. I enjoyed it. I finished it. I just felt like I read it before, and that was the only downfall. Maybe not, it's not its issue itself, but it was so far I liked Tress a little bit more than this one, but I don't hate this one. I would probably give it like a 4-star. Then I reread Girls of Paper and Fire. This is actually my September book club, but I read it really early because I wanted to make sure I had time, and then I flew through it in like 2 days. Amazing. I loved this. I loved it when I read it. I gave it 5 stars. I'm giving it 5 stars again. It has held up over the years. I read it, I think, the year it came out, and it's so good. Basically, it is trigger warnings for sexual assault in this one as well, but it's a fantasy world where demon casts are the main rulers, and the demons are very mean to everybody. Like, they're demons with like animal, like they're almost full animals, but like anamorphic. And you have the steel cast, which are like part demon, part humans, and then you have the paper cast, which are human. And the humans are pretty much stomped on and taken advantage of, and the demon prince or king brings human concubines to serve for 1 year and then discards them, and has like, so basically we have new concubines every year. It's always 8 girls, but then the one sergeant kind of like messes up and finds Leia, our main character, and she has very unique eyes, and that's kind of what like he had heard about. So he brought her to the castle essentially as kind of like a way to try to get back into the good graces of the king. And she becomes the 9th paper girl, and she kind of goes through and sees all the horrors of what is going on to her kind at this demon court. And it's just so good. It's so good, so good, so good. I love it. I can't wait to continue. Once I'm done with my current read, I'm going to go back into the series and hopefully finish it, because it's like, it just got me so hopeful to finish the series now. And finally, I finished The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik. I started this on January 1st of this year. It's taken me quite a while. I feel like it's taken me a while, and I don't want to say too much because like this is a 3rd book in finishing the trilogy, but I do think this slowed down. Like, the series was pretty well paced, and then I feel like this is kind of slow paced. I liked the concept a lot. Like, the first story is where you have like these kids who are being sent to the Scholomance for their own protection, but the Scholomance is just as deadly. It's basically a magical school in like a pocket of time, and they learn magic there because their magical parents create and have these like Maleficaria that are like demons, and they come and eat people. So the school was created, the Scholomance, to protect the kids, but then that also got infiltrated by Maleficaria, and it just kills kids. So that's the premise, and at the end, we're kind of here trying to like follow our main character be a hero, like an unwilling hero. And I like the concept, and I like where the story was going, but I felt like all the stakes the author has created for the entire series with the first 2 books kind of didn't go anywhere in this 3rd book. I thought there was a good way to kind of be a sad ending, but also a hopeful one. And the author didn't do that. And it's not my book, but I definitely would have written it differently, because from the very beginning, there is a very clear expectation that nobody is safe and the stakes are very high and anything could happen at any given moment. And that's not how the book series ended, which I thought was a missed opportunity in my opinion. So it's my least favorite in the series, but overall I really do like the series, and I once I finally got through the book, I enjoyed the idea, if not the execution. So we're here. And that is the 10 books that I read in the month. I'm sorry, I try to be quick, but there's 10 of them, and this is why I try to do a monthly wrap up, because it's way too much for me. So now we come to the writing. Oh my gosh, so yeah, I do have a couple writing updates that I wanted to share really quick. The first is that if you haven't watched my last video that I did post in August, I had my first author event because in July, the Stygian collection released. And because the Stygian collection is a book, like a physical book that you can hold, and my story is in it, and it was the first story I published, I really wanted to celebrate it, on a small scale, but it was fun, and I had lots of family and friends who showed up to support me and bought the collection, and I was just really happy overall that I got to do all those fun things. So I did my event at the Salted Pixie, where I host my writing club every month, and I had a good turnout. There was quite a few people there, but like I said, I think out of everybody, I knew everyone but one person. So be it. That's kind of how I expected for my first event. but it was really cool to have the physical copy. If you guys haven't seen it, if you're interested and you haven't been able to get it, go check it out. The ebook is definitely like the cheapest option you have and one of the easiest delivery methods, but you can also get this on the website or on Amazon if Amazon delivers to you, and then you can come and see my first published story. In addition to the Stygian collection, I also did an author interview for them, which is on the Stygian Society channel. I will leave a link down below if you're interested. Outside of the Stygian collection, as you might have known, I did Camp Nano and I wrote some new short stories, and 2 of them I wrote in order to submit. They were literally wrote to submit. Like, I had no other reason to write them. And I was really going hard on finishing those stories because the deadlines were in August, like August 1st. So I worked really hard on them. And I submitted to the first line, which was a story I was actually really proud of and very thankful for the people who gave me feedback, because they really pushed me in a very tight time crunch to make that story even better than I would have been able to. But I wrote the story and I submitted it to the first line, and it was ultimately rejected. I kind of knew. I kind of had a feeling, because they seem like they're a little bit more bougier, like they like literary fiction. So if it's like literary sci-fi, literary fantasy, mine's quite not that. It's pretty much straight up fantasy, and they basically said that they weren't able to use it, which kind of, to me, seemed like a code for it's not what we're looking for, and that's okay. The person who read it over, though, did say that it was a really fun story and I had really good word building. And that is all I can ask for in the end, because that's what I was striving for. So we have a story to now submit elsewhere, and I do have plans on submitting it. I don't know if I'll get selected for anything else right now, but I have a few ideas. I've been collecting information again on publications for magazines and online presses, and I have a few places that I think I might submit to. Most of them do not allow simultaneous submissions, so I'll probably be submitting, and then if I get rejected, I'll submit elsewhere and kind of go through that route. So I feel like this story is very polished and I'm very proud of it, and I think it has a potential for somewhere to be published, but that's okay if it doesn't. The second story that I was writing was my horror thriller on the Philosopher's Stone for Havoc. Havoc is an online magazine where you don't pay anything to submit, you don't get anything in return other than like your name and glory. And from my time when I went to a writers convention back in 2021, I think now, Jesus, it's been forever. I did an online writing convention, and they were really helpful, and they talked about like the industry and short story writing, and the one that they recommended was The First Line and Havoc. So they were the first 2 online publications that I had ever looked into, and Havoc they have themes, so you write to the theme, and it's all flash fiction, so under 1,000 words. And I just wanted to write something for them, but I never knew what. And then when Legendary Things came around, I knew I wanted to write about the Philosopher's Stone. So I wrote my thriller, I got feedback on that, and I submitted it, and it got accepted. So August was spent doing edits for the magazine, and I've submitted my final edits. They were accepted, and it's going to be released in October sometime. So their themes they have 5 different categories. They have like sci-fi category, which is like Techno Tuesday, they have Wacky Wednesday, and they have Thriller Thursday. So Thriller Thursday is when mine will be published, so it's going to be some Thursday in October. And you will get 1 day to read it for free on the day it's published. And otherwise you would have to pay, like, I think it's like $5 for a subscription, but you would have to pay to see it after it's not for free anymore. And I'm so excited. This is my second publication in a year, and it's wild. Like, oh, shit's happening. So I'm really excited for that. I hope you guys are too. And like I said, this story is actually going to be free. So I will definitely post it in my community tabs, and I will also be posting it on Instagram when it's up and going. So definitely stick around for that. I was then on like a really like short story writing high. So if you guys know, if you've been following me, I've had a deadline, which was August 30th for my Project Mermaid, which is my fantasy story that I've been working on, to query. But with all my health stuff and with everything that's been going on, I have not been able to sit down and write it. I've also been doing critiquing and it's just been really hard to keep up with everything when I just don't have the energy or the capacity. So I wanted to make my deadline, and before all the health stuff happened, I would have, but we didn't, and that's okay. I actually decided that potentially for the rest of the year, Sans may be writing a new story for NaNoWriMo. I think I'm going to focus on short story writing. I think that's where I need to be right now. Having the fact that I have 2 stories now being published this year, which is great, and I didn't even think that was possible for me. I think I've been having a lot of fun with short stories, and I'm really excited about the ideas I have, and I want to let them breathe, and I want them to have growth. Editing my fantasy novel is daunting because I just can't sit and read and write and edit at big chunks of time. But I can sit down and jot some lines down for a short story that will ultimately go somewhere. I mean, maybe it's not going to end up somewhere, but I'm going to send it out places, right? So the other thing is, so many authors, especially with the magazines that I'm inspiring to get published in, so many big authors started there. Like, so many of them started with short stories and then moved on to novel writing. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think that's what's calling me. So if that's the case, where I get some short stories published and then maybe eventually a novel, I'm completely fine with that. And that's what I'm happy writing about. So yeah, I think for the next, like I said, at least through the end of the year, I'm probably going to be focusing on that. Unless, of course, things go in a better direction health-wise and maybe I have more energy and time to focus on Mermaid. But for now, I am going to be writing more short stories moving forward, and I'm very excited about that. And we're going to submit a couple. Since I have a couple stories that have been like edited and cleaned and polished, I am going to go ahead and submit those. I'm actually waiting for a weekend where I don't have anything going on, so I can figure out which ones are the better like magazines to submit to, and I'm going to submit them. And then we're going to just see how it goes. And if I get any feedback, then I'm going to utilize that for my next stories I'm going to write. But in the meantime, I have a couple stories I'm working on. If you haven't watched my RSS series, I have a Rapunzel retelling type of thing that I am writing. I also have kind of like a Aladdin, but not really Aladdin. It's really just like a sad medieval story that I want to write with no magic, just like medieval sadness. I'm going to be writing those 2. I also have 2 sci-fi stories I'm going to work on. One I will actually be revisiting. It is something I've written in the past, probably back in 2020 or 2021, and I haven't gone back to it in a while, and I want to now. I think it's time that I think my editing is good on my own, and then I can submit it to other people to see and then send it out. And I have another sci-fi horror that I want to write. And then the last thing I want to write is, somebody shared in one of my groups this new press that's through Patreon, which is called Crepuscular, and it's microfiction, so no more than 250 words. And I have an idea for that too, and that's a little bit easier, I think, to get because it's only 250 words. So like the words matter, but it's going to be easier to write and edit, in my opinion. The thing is going to be to make sure I don't overwrite, because then we're going to have to cut stuff. So I'm excited for the challenge, and I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, I'm going to keep my eyes on Havoc, and they just announced their new themes for January already. So I'm not going to write, I already missed the window, I think, or I'm missing the window for their last batch, which I believe is Legendary People, but their January one is like some kind of theme. I can't remember it off the top of my head. So I might write something for that too. Lots of short stories in the works. So yeah, okay, I've talked for way too long, I know that. So thank you guys for this lengthy update and coming along and watching it. Let me know how you guys have been, and I hope that I can have some, things popping up, but it might not happen. I am starting a new job. I'm going to physical therapy. I'm helping my partner. There's quite a lot that we are going through, and I might not be able to do much until all of that has settled, or at least something has settled. But I appreciate you guys sticking around, and I hope that I will have something in the future. And if you haven't supported the Stygian collection or are following me on Instagram, please do, because I can tell you more updates on my writing there, because I'm more active on there right now. So, all right, guys, let me know how things have been going for you. Let me know what you've been working on or what you're reading, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!